Ivan Antonovich Efremov. The Hellenic Secret. Part 2. Having found a point of support, I continued to reinforce my conjecture again and again, but I interrupted my reasoning and excitedly took up the phone again. If my reasoning is correct, then I will now hear from Leontiev exactly what I need to hear. If I don't hear it, everything is wrong, and again there is a smooth, impenetrable wall of the unknown ahead. I have forgotten even the late hour. As usual, Leontiev was awake and went straight to the telephone. "It's you, Professor," I heard his usual tense voice in the receiver. "So you've decided something? Tell you what, my dear, do you know your ancestry?" "Oh, how many times have I been asked that?" "As far as I know, there are no lunatics or drunkards in our family." "Don't ask me about lunatics, that's not what I'm after. Do you know what nationality your ancestors were, where they came from, what country?" "You must be a southerner." "That's true, Professor, but I can't understand how." "I'll explain later, don't interrupt me." "So who's a southerner in your family?" "I'm not a noble person and I don't have an exact genealogy. I only know that my grandfather's parents both came from the island of Cyprus. But that was a long time ago, and my grandfather moved to Greece, and from there to Russia, to Crimea. I myself am a Crimean by birthplace." "But why do you want to know, Professor?" "You'll see, if my guess is correct," I answered without hiding my joy, agreed with Leontiev about the reception for tomorrow, and hung up the phone. Lying in bed, I thought for a long time. The task was clear, and the diagnosis was correct. Now it was necessary to strengthen and continue the manifestation of the memory of generations to some important for Leontiev limit. But what this limit was, Leontiev, of course, did not know, and I could not guess either. Already falling asleep, I decided that the future would show itself. The next day Leontiev was sitting in the same office and in the same posture. His pale face was no longer frowning, and he followed me with his eyes without interruption, while I walked round the room and told him about my theory. When I had finished, I sank into the chair behind the desk, and he sat in deep thought. I moved, and he flinched, then, looking stubbornly into my eyes, asked, "And don't you think, Professor, that it was not by chance that the very idea of the ivory statue came to me?" "Well, maybe," I answered briefly, not wishing to be distracted from the way of further clarification of Leontiev's memories that had come into my head. "And does not what I have to remember have anything to do with my statue?" The artist continued to insist. "Ah, this is very likely," I immediately responded, as the words of the artist as if to put a point in my thoughts. Leontiev's eyes lit up and showed how strongly my conjecture had affected him. Perhaps he instinctively felt the rightness of the way to solve the riddle and was already helping me in my search. We agreed that the artist would immediately try to isolate himself from all external influences. Locking himself up in his flat, he would try to concentrate on his visions in the semi-darkness, and when the paintings disappeared, he would try to summon them again with thoughts of his statue. Not to fight against the feeling of needing to remember something, but, on the contrary, to strengthen it by exciting the memory by some special methods according to my instructions. In the endeavor to remember, the nervous excitement may reach a dangerous limit, but this risk will have to be run. Leontiev will report the visions and his condition to me by telephone in the evening. This time the lieutenant hurried home. Seeing his slender figure with my eyes, I thought once more of the rare attractiveness of this man, who had become dear to me inexplicably. In the evening, contrary to expectation, there was no call. Slightly worried, I was about to call myself, but I hesitated, deciding not to disturb the lonely concentration of my patient. However, somewhere inside I was gnawing a doubt about the safety of the treatment system I had invented, and when the phone rang the next evening, I looked at the nasty machine with relief. "My dear Professor, you are probably right. I've come in," Leontiev told me without a preface, and it was as if he didn't feel any unhealthy tension in his voice. "What is it? Where did you go?" I did not understand. "Yes, in this house or palace, well, in that white building on the cliff," said the artist in a hurry. "Of course, all these pictures, which I remembered so clearly, gradually lead one into another. Now I see what is inside that building. It is a large room or hall. Instead of a door, there is a wide-open copper grate. Copper sheets lining the floor. There are no windows, but instead wide arcades above. A steady light streams through them without shadows. There are many statues and other things, but I could not see them clearly. At the wall opposite the grating, in the center of the main axis of the hall, there is a low, wide arcade, into which one can see the thick tops of pine trees and the sky shining through them. By this arcade there is also a white statue, and next to it some tables and vessels. Oh my God, I realize now, this is the sculptor's workshop. Goodbye, Professor. The tube clicked deafeningly. I, perhaps, no less than the artist himself, was impatient to learn more, clearly aware of the unusualness of what I met. But as a scientist I was trained to be patient and could still go about my business, even though the phone was silent for the next 2 evenings. The call came early in the morning, when I was just about to start the working day and was not expecting any message from Leontiev. The artist tiredly asked me to come to him at once if I could. I seem to have finished my wanderings in the ancient world. I can't understand anything, Professor, and I'm very afraid. He didn't finish. All right, I'll do my best. Wait, either I'll come or I'll call you, I hastily agreed. Having secured myself a free morning, I went to Taganka and not without difficulty found a beautiful little house with a turret, situated on a hill, in a garden, deeply hidden in the bend of the street. I rang the bell and was immediately greeted by Leontiev himself. The artist quickly took me into his room, which was very simple, without any of the deliberate disorder in tastes and habits, for some reason accepted by people of art. The window, covered with a thick carpet, gave no light. A small bulb, covered by something blue, barely made it possible to distinguish objects. I grinned at the precision with which my instructions had been carried out. Turn on the light. You can't see a damn thing. If you can, you don't need to light it, Professor, my patient asked me timidly. I'm afraid of losing my concentration. I don't have the strength to concentrate again. I agreed, of course, and Leontiev, throwing the blue coverlet off the lamp, seated me on a wide couch and sat down himself. Even in the scanty light I could see how pale and pale his cheeks had become and how large his lustrous eyes had grown. Well, tell me, I encouraged the artist, taking out my cigarettes and watching his face carefully. Leontiev reached slowly to the table, took a sheet of paper from it and silently handed it to me. The large sheet was covered with uneven lines of incomprehensible signs. Some crosses, corners, arcs and figure eights, not written, but rather carefully sketched, went in groups, apparently forming separate words. I had a general idea of various alphabets, both ancient and modern, but I had never seen anything like it. 2 short lines were written at the top, apparently denoting the title. I looked at the page of unknown writing for a long time, and a presentiment of the extraordinary and interesting gradually seized me, that wonderful feeling of the threshold of the unknown familiar to anyone who has made any great discovery. When I looked up at the artist, I saw that he was watching me uninterruptedly. Even his lips were half opened, giving his face a childishly attentive expression. Do you understand anything, Professor? Anxiously asked Leontiev. Of course, nothing, I answered bluntly, but I hope to understand after your explanations. Oh, it's still the same chain of visions. Do you remember that I called you and told you about the inside of the building? During the conversation with you, I realized that it was a sculptor's studio or an art school. Another extra connection with my dream struck me, and I hurried back to the hallucinations, already understanding in them some definite line, some meaning, which I was supposed to unravel. Again and again I yielded to my visions, intensifying them and concentrating on your instructions, but all the other pictures that had previously flashed before me either disappeared again, or somehow faded away, became inarticulate. As soon as the most distinct and long-lasting visions appeared, the hall in the white building, the art workshop, invariably returned. I could see nothing else and began to despair. The feeling of the closed memory of which you spoke did not come. Suddenly, I noticed that one part of the room was gradually becoming clearer with each new vision, and I realized that the continuation of the mental pictures was to be sought only inside the sculpture studio. My visions could not go any further. No matter how hard I tried, so to speak, to get out of the sculptor's workshop, I could not see anything else. But the right side of the wall against the grating, where there was a wide and low window, an archway, became more and more distinct. The vision went out and came back again, and each time I could see more and more details. On the left, a small statue, half a man's height, made of ivory, stood out in clear silhouette against the background of pines and sky visible through the arcade. I tried very hard to see it, but it did not gradually become clearer, but, on the contrary, faded away. In the same way, a new detail, which at first became more distinct than the statue, faded away. A low and long tub of grey stone, filled almost to the brim with some dark liquid. In this tub the outline of a sculptured figure was vaguely visible, as if a nude body drowned in the dark liquid. But even this detail faded away, and beside the tub revealed a wide table with a thick stone slab on top and a long bench-like seat in front of it of yellow, smoothly polished wood. On the table lay in disarray sticks, rolls, and other objects in which, I can vouch for this, I recognized some sculptured tools similar to those I myself was accustomed to use. Nearer to the right-hand corner of the table lay a square plate or thick sheet of smooth copper without any ornamentation, covered with some marks. This sheet became more and more distinct, and at last the whole vision centered on this sheet of copper. Its greenish surface with the signs carved on it stood clearly before me. Not understanding anything, I nevertheless intuitively realized that this was the end of the series of mental pictures, the closing of the chain of visions, as you suggest. Languishing in a vague anxiety, I began to sketch the signs of the copper plate. You see, Professor, his flexible fingers went through a whole pile of sheets. It was necessary to start again and again. The vision faded away and sometimes did not come back again for hours, but I waited patiently until I was able to draw up this sheet you are holding. My left hand hasn't quite adapted yet, and it was slow. And now I don't see anything anymore. I'm tired, everything is indifferent. I can't sleep, I'm afraid vaguely and persistently of some mistake. I don't see any connection with myself in these intricate signs. I used to feel it very sharply, sculptures, ivory statues, but now I don't understand anything again. What is all this, Professor? That's what it is, I answered, trembling with excitement. Take a dose of sleeping pills, which I have prepared in case you overdo your visions. You will fall asleep, that is what you need most, and I will take the sheet, and by evening we shall have an idea of what it all means. Indeed, your hallucinations have come to an end. I don't understand everything yet, but I think that you have remembered at last what you need. Only the unexpected, outlandish writings. I'll ask you again, are you absolutely sure that your visions are Hellas or, let's say, only somehow connected with it? I told you, Professor, I can't explain why, but I'm sure I saw Hellas, or, more correctly, pieces of it. Very well, now try to sleep, and then take down all these reclusive curtains. My dear, you will come back to life. Well, that's enough, that's enough. I interrupted the artist's further questions and quickly went out, carrying away the mysterious sheet. A little more patience, I thought, heading for the tram, and everything should be solved. Either this is really a record of something important torn from the depths of the past, or delirious nonsense. No, it doesn't look like the latter. The same characters are often repeated, groups of unequal numbers of characters are separated by gaps, and there's obviously a title at the top. No, you wouldn't write such a thing in a delirium. So, since the artist is sure it's Hellas, we need to go to a Hellenist. Who is the biggest specialist in this field in Moscow? I continued my reasoning, but I couldn't remember anyone. At home, with the help of a directory of scientific workers, a calendar of the academy and a despicable telephone, I recognized the person I needed and called him immediately. Lucky me, he was at home. Not more than 40 minutes later, I was smoking another cigarette in his office, while the scientist looked at the sheet with mysterious signs. "Where did you get, or rather, copy this?" exclaimed the Hellenist, penetrating me with squinting, glittering eyes. "I will tell you everything without secret, but first, for heaven's sake, explain to me what it is." The scientist sighed impatiently and leaned over the sheet again, speaking in a measured, intonationless voice. "The passage you have brought is written in what is called Cyprian script, a syllabic alphabet, from right to left, as they used to write in Hellas. It is written in the Aeolian dialect of the ancient Greek language. So I find it difficult to translate the whole passage quickly. The title line, 'Yes, that's interesting,' is made up of 3 words, at the top, Malacta elephantos. Below them at the bottom, zithos. The first 2 words mean literally ivory softener and figuratively, master of ivory. Our name craftsman also comes from this root. Zithos is a special unknown liquid, a means of softening ivory. Do you know that in ancient Hellas artists knew the secret of making ivory as soft as wax, and thanks to this they molded very perfect works of art out of it, which then hardened, becoming ordinary ivory again? This secret was then irretrievably lost, and no one to this day. Oh, damn it, I've got it. Jumping up from the chair, I shouted. When I saw the scientist's frightened and puzzled face, I realized and hastily added, "Forgive me, for God's sake, but this is very important for me and, most importantly, for my patient. Can't you give me now, at least in the most general terms, the contents of the following?" The Hellenist shrugged his shoulders and did not answer. But I could see his eyes running over the lines of the sheet, and I tried to freeze in my chair, restraining my excitement and frenzied joy. After a few what seemed like very long minutes, the scientist said, "As far as I can make out without special reference, there is a chemical recipe written down here, but the names of the substances will have to be interpreted specifically. Well, it says seawater, then cinna powder and some Poseidon's oil, and so on. This is probably the recipe for the remedy I just told you about. It is very important," concluded the Hellenist. The tone of his voice seemed to me too dry for the enormous significance of his words. But anyway, it was clear. On the copper plate, that is, here, on the sheet, was written the recipe for a remedy for softening ivory. The artist had finally remembered it after dozens of generations, and indeed now he would be able to create a statue of Irina by simply molding her. The scientist looked at me expectantly. Full of triumph and excitement, I got up and immediately told him the story of my patient and some of my theory. When I finished, the expression of incredulous amazement had finally disappeared from the Hellenist's face. The little eyes had become quite kind and perhaps too moist. As I left his office, I saw the scholar already rummaging through the bookcases, quickly pulling out book after book. Relieved that the promised translation of the leaf would be done as quickly as possible, I went about my usual business with a sense of festive peace-joy. The sense of peace and the happiness of a triumphant mind did not leave me in the familiar silence of my study. But my impatience to tell the artist what had become so clear made me call him at once. He had evidently been waiting for my call, and responded quickly to my invitation to come to me immediately. "I'm on my way." I remembered very vividly that evening Leontiev's haggard face with sharp shadows from the desk lamp and his attentive eyes, with sparks of amazement, joy, and triumph running through them. "So I have discovered, no, remembered, the lost secret of the ancient masters," exclaimed the artist excitedly, still not believing what had happened. "But how could I have done it?" I explained to him that science does not have the exact data yet, but apparently in the previous generations of his ancestors were masters who knew this secret. The long work and importance of this recipe had caused some very strong bonds to form in the memory of one of his ancestors, fixed for transmission in the mechanism of heredity. These connections, being stored under the spud of his personal memory, arose in him, Leontiev. Thus, there is only one marvelous thing here, a remarkable coincidence of the manifestation of ancient memory and the importance of the Hellenic secret for him, who also became a sculptor like his ancestors. A very great desire to create a statue of Irina, the will and tension of all his strength help him to summon from the subconscious area pictures of ancient visual memory. Without knowing it himself, he felt all the time that he knew exactly what was so necessary for him. At the end of the explanation, the artist listened absent-mindedly, nodding his head and as if trying to let me know that he had already understood everything. As soon as I had finished, a quick question followed. So, when the scientist makes a translation, I will have a recipe for this remedy, Professor? Are you quite sure of that? It is difficult for me to convey the artist's joy and excitement after my affirmative answer. Think of it. Now I will fulfill my dream, my goal with one hand, and his long fingers moved, as if already working the magic material of soft ivory. Now, tomorrow his voice trembled. And this was given to me by you, Professor, your science. The painter jumped up and grabbed my hand, reached out to me like a child to his father, but was ashamed of his impulse, turned away, sat down and put his head on his healthy hand, on the table. His shoulders shuddered slightly. I went out into the other room, myself agitated to the depths of my soul, and sat there smoking. The next day I saw the artist again at the Hellenists, who had made a translation of a record containing the exact recipe for the lost secret. After that I parted with my patient and began to catch up on some of the things I had missed in the meantime, endeavoring at the same time to make a full report with all possible explanations of the extraordinary case I had encountered. The days went by, spring days changed to summer days, and autumn approached imperceptibly. I was very tired from the heavy workload, the years were making themselves felt, I got a little sick and stayed at home. Suddenly 2 young men came to me. I recognized Leontiev at once and guessed his Irina. The artist's hand was still hanging on the bandage, but it was already a completely different person, and I have rarely seen on anyone's face so much clarity and kindness. About Irina, I will only say that she was worth the artist's mad love and all our labors in search of the Hellenic secret. Irina kissed me firmly, looking silently into my eyes, and, to tell the truth, I was more touched by this silent gratitude than by 1,000 dithyrambs. Leontiev, worrying, said that the statue was already ready. He was dedicating it to science and to me as a tribute to the saved Saviour, feeling to reason, and he wanted very much to show it to me. Well, I've seen the statue. I won't describe it. That will be done by specialists. As an anatomist, I saw in it that supreme perfection of expediency, what all of you would call beauty, in which the author's love has put joyful and easy movement. In short, I did not want to leave the statue. For a long time this marvelously beautiful woman stood before my eyes as a proof of the power of form, the subtle happiness of beauty common to all people.